My name is Adil, and welcome to the channel. You know, I've seen a lot of things come through the door over the years. Some are junk, some are interesting, but every once in a while you get something that just stops you in your tracks. Something with real history. That's what we're talking about today, America's most valuable coins. We're going on a journey, not just through a price guide, but through the very story of the United States, told one piece of metal at a time. This is a world where a single penny can be worth more than a house, and a dollar coin can fetch millions at auction. These aren't just pieces of currency you'd find in your pocket. Forget that. These are national treasures. Each one is a tiny time capsule, a snapshot of a specific moment in American history. From the struggles of the early colonies to the California gold rush, and even the chaos of the Great Depression, these coins were there. They reflect the art, the politics, and the ambitions of the nation. They carry the stories of presidents, pioneers, and everyday people who held them in their hands. So how does a simple coin become a legend worth millions? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a combination of rarity, history, and of course, a great story. You never know what you're going to get. Today, we're going to look at some of the heavy hitters, the icons of the numismatic world. We'll uncover their secrets, their history, and what makes them the most sought-after pieces of American history on the planet. Stick around, because you're not going to want to miss this. Before the United States was, the United States, figuring out what to pay with was a total free-for-all. Imagine going to a store where they might take Spanish silver, English shillings, or even French louis d'or. It was chaos. The colonies were a melting pot not just of people, but of currencies. The most common coin you'd see was the Spanish milled dollar, the famous piece of 8. It was so common, in fact, that people would literally cut it into 8 bits to make change. That's where the old saying 2 bits for a quarter comes from. It was a practical solution to a messy problem, but Americans have always been an independent bunch. We didn't want to rely on foreign money forever. So even before we had a federal government, individual colonies started experimenting. The Massachusetts Bay Colony was one of the first, minting their own silver coins back in the 1650s. The most famous of these is the pine tree shilling. It was a pretty simple design, really just a tree on a silver disc, but it was a bold statement. It was a declaration of economic independence from England, and King Charles II was not happy about it. He saw it as treason. Finding one of these today in good condition? That's a real piece of early American defiance. As the Revolution heated up, the need for a distinctly American currency became even more urgent. In 1776, the Continental Congress authorized the production of a dollar coin to back up its new paper money, the Continental. These were mostly made of pewter, with some rare silver and brass examples. The design was incredible, featuring a sundial and the words, "Mind your business," a classic bit of Ben Franklin wit. The back had a chain of 13 linked rings, each representing a colony. It's a powerful symbol of unity, but the coins never really circulated widely. The whole project fell apart, making the surviving examples incredibly rare and valuable historical artifacts. Then you have my personal favorite from this era, the Fugio cent of 1787. This was the first official circulation coin of the new United States, authorized by Congress before the mint was even established. Again, you see Ben Franklin's influence. One side has the sun and a sundial with the motto Fugio, which is Latin for I fly, a reminder that time flies, so get to work. The other side has the same 13 linked rings we saw on the Continental dollar, with the motto We are one. It perfectly captures the spirit of the young, ambitious nation. These early coins and tokens weren't just about commerce, they were about identity. In a world dominated by kings and empires, these simple pieces of metal were a way for the fledgling nation to say, we are here, we are independent, and this is our money. There wasn't a central mint, so they were made by different states and private contractors. This means quality was all over the place, and production numbers were low. That's a recipe for rarity. When you're dealing with something from this period, you're not just buying a coin, you're buying a founding document. The problem was, this patchwork system couldn't last. For a new nation to be taken seriously on the world stage, it needed a stable, unified monetary system. The barter, the foreign coins, the state tokens, it was holding back economic growth. The founding fathers knew this. Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury, was a huge proponent of a national mint. He argued that a national currency was essential for national sovereignty and economic power. The stage was set for a new chapter in American money. So when one of these early pieces comes into the shop, my heart starts beating a little faster. You're holding something that was there at the very beginning. It might have been in the pocket of a soldier at Valley Forge or a delegate at the Constitutional Convention. You can't put a price on that kind of history. Well, actually you can. And it's usually very, very high. The rarity is just off the charts. You have to know what you're looking for, because forgeries are common. But a genuine piece? It's the cornerstone of any serious collection. With the Constitution ratified, it was time to get serious. In 1792, Congress passed the Coinage Act, and everything changed. This act established the United States Mint in Philadelphia, the first federal building erected under the new Constitution. It laid out the blueprint for American money, the dollar as the main unit, and a decimal system of cents, dimes, and dollars. No more cutting up Spanish coins. This was the start of a truly American currency, controlled by the government for the people. It was a huge step. The very first coins struck under the authority of the U.S. government are the stuff of legend. Before the big machinery was even ready at the mint, a small batch of half-dizems, that's an early spelling of dime, were struck in 1792. The story goes that George Washington himself donated his personal silverware to be melted down for these first coins. While that might be more folklore than fact, it's a great story, and Washington definitely mentioned them in a speech to Congress. These little silver coins are incredibly rare and represent the birth of our nation's coinage. Owning one is like owning a piece of the Founding Fathers' vision. The following year, 1793, the mint began full-scale production, starting with copper cents. The first design is known as the chain cent. It's raw, it's powerful, and it was controversial. The back featured a chain with 15 links, symbolizing the 15 states at the time. The idea was to represent strength in unity. But some people didn't like it. They said it looked like a symbol of slavery, not freedom. The mint got the message and quickly changed the design to a wreath. Because of that short run, the chain cent is a major prize for collectors. Then, in 1794, came the big one, the first official United States silver dollar. This is the flowing hair dollar. The design is simple and elegant, showing Lady Liberty with long, flowing hair and a kind of scrawny-looking eagle on the back. The minting process back then was primitive. The presses were operated by hand, and the quality varied a lot. They only managed to strike about 1,758 of them, and experts think only around 130 still exist today. It's the granddaddy of all silver dollars, and when one comes up for auction, it breaks records. One example sold for over $10 million, making it one of the most expensive coins in the world. Let's not forget about gold. The Coinage Act also authorized gold coins, the $10 eagle, the $5 half eagle, and the $2.50 quarter eagle. The first gold coins were minted in 1795. These early gold pieces are beautiful, featuring a portrait of Liberty wearing a turban-like cap. They're also incredibly valuable. Back then, gold wasn't for everyday transactions. This was money for banks, wealthy merchants, and international trade. It was a symbol of America's growing economic power. Finding one of these early eagles, especially in high grade, is a serious challenge. The thing about all these early federal coins, from 1792 through the early 1800s, is that survival is the exception, not the rule. Most of these coins were used. They were melted down, worn out, or lost to time. Mintage numbers were tiny compared to today. A mintage of 100,000 was considered huge back then. Today, the mint can strike that many coins in an hour. This inherent scarcity is a huge driver of their value. When you're looking at a coin from this era, you're looking at a survivor. Every detail on these coins tells a story. The number of stars on a coin often corresponds to the number of states in the Union at the time of minting. The evolution of Lady Liberty's portrait reflects changing artistic tastes and political ideals. Even the technical imperfections, the weak strikes, the die cracks, give us a window into the challenges the early mint faced. It's a fascinating field. You're not just a collector, you're a historian, a detective, and an art critic all rolled into one. It's what makes this business so interesting. Now we come to a coin that's in a class all by itself. It's a coin so famous it has a title, the King of American Coins. I'm talking about the legendary 1804 silver dollar. The story behind this coin is more like a mystery novel than a history lesson. It's full of twists, turns, and a little bit of government shenanigans. And here's the kicker, the first secret of the 1804 dollar, none of them were actually minted in 1804. It's a paradox, and that's just the beginning of what makes this coin so special. Here's how it happened. In the 1830s, President Andrew Jackson wanted to create special diplomatic gift sets for foreign rulers, including the Sultan of Muscat and the King of Siam. He ordered the mint to strike proof sets of all currently circulating U.S. coins. The problem was, the U.S. hadn't actually minted a silver dollar since 1804. The mint director, looking at his records, saw that the last production year was 1804, so he instructed the engravers to use that date for the new dollars. He didn't realize those last dollars were actually struck using older 1803 dies. So, the coins created for these diplomatic sets in the 1830s were backdated to 1804. These first 8 coins, known as Class 1 1804 dollars, are the original kings. They were never meant for circulation. They were diplomatic gifts, symbols of American prestige. One was given to the Sultan of Muscat, and that very coin is now in the National Numismatic Collection at the Smithsonian. Another went to the King of Siam. The whereabouts of some of these original coins became the stuff of legend, tracked and traced through royal collections and private estates for over a century. Just the provenance, the history of ownership of one of these coins is a story in itself. But the story gets even stranger. A few decades later, in the 1850s and 60s, some enterprising mint employees saw how desirable these 1804 dollars were becoming. So, they decided to make a few more on the side. They secretly used the original 1804 dies to strike a handful of additional coins to sell or trade to collectors under the table. These are known as Class 2 and Class 3 restrikes. The one and only Class 2 coin was struck over an 1857 Swiss shooting thaler and is now impounded in the Smithsonian. The Class 3 coins have a slightly different edge lettering and are also incredibly valuable, but the Class 1 originals are the true holy grail. Today, only 15 of these 1804 dollars are known to exist across all classes. That's it, 15 coins. When you're talking about rarity, it doesn't get much more extreme than that. Every single one is accounted for. Their pedigree is tracked like a royal bloodline. We know who owned them, when they were sold, and for how much. When one of these surfaces for sale, it's a major event in the collecting world. The entire market stops to watch. It's like seeing a unicorn go up for auction. The price tag reflects that rarity. These coins regularly sell for millions of dollars. The Sultan of Muscat specimen, later owned by collector Walter Childs, was the first coin to break the $4 million barrier back in 1999. More recently, another example sold for over $7.6 million. The price is driven by the perfect storm of factors: extreme rarity, a fascinating and mysterious backstory, and its status as a diplomatic piece connected to a U.S. president. It's the ultimate trophy coin. For a coin guy, the 1804 dollar is more than just an expensive piece of silver. It's the embodiment of numismatic fantasy. It represents the pinnacle of collecting. It's a coin that was born from a historical misunderstanding, created for kings, and then secretly reproduced in a clandestine operation. You couldn't write a better script. It has everything: history, mystery, and a value that is almost unimaginable. It truly earns its title as the king. The mid-19th century changed America forever, and honestly, it all started with just a glint of yellow in a California river. The gold rush of 1849 was like a lightning bolt to the nation's economy and its coinage. Suddenly, a massive amount of gold was flowing into the system, and the U.S. Mint had to figure out what to do with it all. Their solution was to create a brand new, massive gold coin, the $20 double eagle. It was the largest circulating gold coin the U.S. had ever produced, containing nearly a full ounce of pure gold. The very first of these coins, the 1849 double eagle, is a unique pattern coin. Only one was ever struck, and it now sits in the Smithsonian. It's a priceless artifact that represents the very beginning of America's obsession with gold. The following year, the Mint began full-scale production in Philadelphia, and crucially, in the new Mint at New Orleans. These early double eagles were the workhorses of their day, used to settle large transactions and store massive amounts of wealth. They are icons of the Old West, true treasure coins. The gold rush also created a need for mints on the West Coast. It was expensive and dangerous to ship all that gold from California back to Philadelphia. So, in 1854, the San Francisco Mint opened its doors, and right away, it produced some of the greatest rarities in American history. Take the 1854 S$5 half eagle. They only made 268 of them. It was a tiny first-year run, and almost all of them were immediately circulated and worn out. Today, only 4 are known to exist. It's a ghost from the early days of the San Francisco Mint, a coin so rare most collectors will never even see one in person. It's not just the big mints that produced rarities. The story of the 1870 S$3 gold piece is a perfect example. The San Francisco Mint wasn't even scheduled to produce any $3 gold coins that year. The story goes that they needed one to place in the cornerstone of the new mint building being constructed. So, they prepared the dies and struck a single, solitary coin for that purpose. Some evidence suggests a second one might have been struck for a collector, but only one is confirmed to exist today. It's a unique coin, created for a single ceremonial purpose, and is now one of the most famous and valuable pieces in numismatics. The West Coast wasn't just about gold, it also produced legendary silver coins. The Comstock lode in Nevada unleashed a torrent of silver, leading to all sorts of political and economic drama. Out of this era comes the 1870 S-seated Liberty dollar. Just like the $3 gold piece from that same year, the official records show no silver dollars were minted in San Francisco in 1870. And yet, about a dozen of them are known to exist. No one knows for sure why they were made. Were they test pieces? Presentation pieces? We don't know, and that mystery makes them incredibly desirable. Another fascinating coin from this period is the trade dollar. These were created in the 1870s specifically for trade with Asia, particularly China. They contained slightly more silver than a standard US silver dollar to compete with other international silver coins. They worked for a while, but then the price of silver dropped and their legal tender status in the US was revoked. Most were recalled and melted or chop-marked by merchants in China. In 1884 and 1885, the mint struck a tiny number of proof-only trade dollars for collectors. Only 5 1885 trade dollars are known, making them one of the great silver rarities. This era, from the gold rush to the turn of the century, was a dynamic and turbulent time for American coinage. New mints were opening, new discoveries of gold and silver were changing the economic landscape, and the country was expanding westward at an incredible pace. The coins from this period reflect that energy and chaos. Many of the greatest rarities were created by accident or in tiny numbers at new branch mints. When you find a coin with an S.Mint mark from San Francisco or a CC from Carson City, you're holding a piece of the Old West. As America entered the 20th century, President Theodore Roosevelt decided that the nation's coins were, to put it bluntly, ugly. He wanted coins that were works of art, something that could rival the beautiful coins of ancient Greece. He called it his pet crime, and he enlisted the help of one of America's greatest sculptors, Augustus St. Gaudens, to redesign the gold coinage. The result was the most beautiful coin ever produced by the United States, the 1907 St. Gaudens Double Eagle. The first versions of this coin were struck in ultra-high relief. The design was so detailed and three-dimensional that it took multiple strikes from the press to bring up all the details. It was honestly more of a sculpture than a coin. The mint quickly realized this was impractical for mass production and lowered the relief. But those first few ultra-high relief specimens are absolutely breathtaking. They are the realization of Roosevelt's dream, a true masterpiece of numismatic art. They are incredibly valuable, not just for their gold content, but as works of art. The 20th century also gave us one of the greatest what-if stories in coin collecting, the 1913 Liberty Head nickel. By 1913, the official design had already been switched to the new Buffalo nickel. The mint had no authorization to make any more Liberty Head nickels, and yet 5 of them, all dated 1913, mysteriously appeared years later in the hands of a former mint employee named Samuel Brown. How did they get made? Were they struck as tests and smuggled out? No one knows for sure. These 5 coins have been tracked and sold for millions ever since, becoming one of the most famous and hyped rarities in the world. Then comes the story of the 1933 Double Eagle. These coins were fully, legally minted, almost 500,000 of them. But there was a problem. In the depths of the Great Depression, President Franklin D. Roosevelt took the country off the gold standard and made it illegal for private citizens to own gold. He ordered all the newly minted 1933 Double Eagles to be melted down before they were ever issued, all of them. Except a few escaped the melting pot. For decades, the government claimed none had been legally released and would seize any that turned up. The saga came to a head when one specimen, the Farouk specimen, named after the king of Egypt who once owned it, was discovered. After a long legal battle, the government agreed to issue that single coin, making it legal to own. It was then sold at auction in 2002 for a staggering $7.59 million. In 2021, it sold again for nearly $19 million, becoming the most expensive coin ever sold at auction. It's valuable because it's a coin that shouldn't exist, a survivor of a government order to destroy. Sometimes, value comes not from a grand design or a presidential order, but from a simple mistake. During World War II, to save copper for the war effort, the Mint switched to making pennies out of zinc-coated steel in 1943. But at the Philadelphia Mint, a few leftover copper planchets, the blank discs, from 1942 accidentally got mixed in with the steel ones. The result was the 1943 copper penny. A handful of these bronze cents were mistakenly struck. Finding one is like winning the lottery. It's one of the most famous era coins in American history. The opposite mistake happened the next year. In 1944, the Mint switched back to using copper. But this time, a few of the leftover steel planchets from 1943 got stuck in the machinery and were struck with 1944 dies. The 1944 steel penny is even rarer than its 1943 copper counterpart. These wartime errors are a perfect example of how something as simple as using the wrong piece of metal can create a rarity worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a reminder to always check your change, because you never know what you're going to find. You might think that all the super valuable coins are from 100 years ago or more, but that's not true. The modern era, from 1965 to today, has produced its own share of rarities and fascinating stories. You see, even with modern technology, things can go wrong at the Mint, and sometimes they experiment with new things. When that happens, you get the recipe for a modern collectible. It proves that treasure can be hiding in places you'd least expect. A perfect example is the 1974 aluminum cent. In the early 70s, the price of copper was skyrocketing, and it was getting to the point where the metal in a penny was worth more than 1 cent. The Mint started looking for alternatives. They experimented with different metals, and the leading candidate was aluminum. They struck about 1.5 million aluminum cents dated 1974 and even handed some out to members of Congress to build support for the switch. The problem was, the vending machine industry and pediatricians, who worried the coins wouldn't show up on x-rays if swallowed, hated the idea. The plan was scrapped, and the Mint was ordered to recall and destroy all the samples. But, as always, a few escaped. For years, the government maintained that any 1974 aluminum cent in private hands was illegal government property. Only a couple are known to exist outside the Smithsonian, and their legal status is still murky, which only adds to the mystique. One was found by the son of a U.S. Capitol Police officer. It's a classic case of a government experiment gone awry, creating a major rarity. Another modern classic is the 2000p Sacagawea Cheerios dollar. When the new golden dollar was set to launch in 2000, the Mint partnered with General Mills for a massive promotion. They placed one of the new dollars in every 2000th box of Cheerios. As part of this promotion, a small number of early strike coins were delivered to General Mills. It turns out these advance coins were struck from a different set of master dies than the regular circulation coins. The tail feathers on the eagle are much more detailed. Nobody noticed this difference for 5 years. By then, most of these Cheerios dollars had been spent, played with by kids, or thrown out with the cereal box. Once collectors realized the difference, the hunt was on. Only a few dozen of these detailed tail feather varieties have ever been found. It's a perfect example of a modern rarity created by a promotion and a subtle design difference. A coin that came from a cereal box can be worth thousands of dollars. You gotta love it. The Mint doesn't just make mistakes. Sometimes it creates modern rarities on purpose. In 2009, they decided to pay homage to the most beautiful coin ever made, the St. Gaudens Double Eagle. Using 21st century technology, they were able to digitally recreate Augustus St. Gaudens' original vision, including the stunning ultra-high relief that was too difficult to produce back in 1907. They struck a modern 1-ounce 24-karat gold coin with this classic design. These 2009 ultra-high relief double eagles were not made for circulation. They were sold directly to collectors as special collector's items. but they captured the imagination of the public and the collecting world. They were a tribute to a classic design, executed with a level of perfection that was impossible a century ago. It showed that the U.S. Mint could still create objects of incredible beauty. These coins are highly sought after and are a cornerstone of many modern collections. They prove that a coin doesn't have to be old to be a classic. These modern coins show that the story of numismatics is still being written. The factors that create rarity, errors, experiments, low mintages, and special editions are still at play. While you're less likely to find $1 million coin in your pocket change today than 100 years ago, it's not impossible. You have to know what you're looking for. The subtle die variety, the odd-looking metal, the special edition packaging. The treasure hunt never really ends. So we've seen some incredible coins, from the dawn of the Republic to the modern day. But what's the secret sauce? What takes a piece of metal and turns it into $1 million collectible? It's not just one thing, it's a combination of 4 key factors. If you want to understand the world of rare coins, you have to understand these principles. The first, and maybe the most important, is historical significance. A coin that is tied to a major event or a famous person will almost always be more valuable. The 1792 half-dismy is valuable because it's tied to the very founding of the U.S. Mint and George Washington. The 1933 double eagle is a legend because of its connection to FDR's gold recall during the Great Depression. These coins are more than just currency. They are historical artifacts. They are tangible links to the past. When you hold one, you're holding a story, and people will pay a premium for a great story. The second factor is the one everyone thinks of: first rarity or low mintage. This is simple supply and demand. If only a few of something were made and a lot of people want it, the price goes up. The 1804 dollar, with only 15 known examples, is the ultimate example. The same goes for the 1870s $3 gold piece, with only one confirmed specimen. But rarity isn't just about how many were originally minted. It's also about how many survived. Billions of Morgan silver dollars were minted, but many were melted down, so a common date in pristine condition can still be rare. That brings us to the third factor: condition, or grade. A coin that looks like it just left the mint yesterday is going to be worth a lot more than the same coin that's been rattling around in someone's pocket for 50 years. Professional grading services like PCGs and NGC assign a numerical grade to a coin, from 1 to 70. A grade of 70 is a perfect coin, and the difference between a 65 and a 66 can mean thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. For many coins, there might be thousands of worn examples, but only 1 or 2 known in perfect mint state condition. That top-of-the-line specimen is the one that commands the record prices. The final key factor is errors and varieties. These are the happy accidents. The U.S. Mint produces billions of coins, and sometimes things go wrong. A die might be hubbed twice, creating a doubled image. The wrong planche might be used, like with the 1943 copper penny. Or a subtle design change might create a rare variety, like the Cheerios dollar. These mistakes create instant collectibles. They are unique, they are scarce, and collectors love hunting for them. An error coin is a deviation from the norm, and in the world of collecting, different is often better. So when you look at any of the coins we've discussed, you'll see they hit on most, if not all, of these points. The 1913 Liberty Head nickel has a great story, is incredibly rare, and is an unauthorized issue. The 1794 flowing hair dollar has immense historical significance, a tiny mintage and survival rate, and top condition examples are almost non-existent. It's the convergence of these 4 elements: history, rarity, condition, and errors that creates the perfect storm for a record-breaking coin. Understanding these factors is the key to appreciating why this hobby is so fascinating. It's a puzzle. You're not just looking at a coin, you're evaluating its entire life story. Where has it been? How many were made? How well did it survive? What makes it special? Answering those questions is what separates a casual collector from a true numismatist. It's what separates a piece of pocket change from a national treasure. So there you have it. From colonial shillings made in defiance of a king to modern gold pieces crafted with 21st century technology, the story of America can be told through its most valuable coins. We've seen how a simple administrative error created the king of American coins, how a world war could lead to a penny made of the wrong metal, and how a sculptor's vision could create a masterpiece you can hold in your hand. Each coin is so much more than a collectible. It's a tangible piece of our shared past, an artifact of the nation's journey. These coins are silent witnesses to history. They pass through the hands of merchants, soldiers, presidents, and pioneers. They survive depressions, wars, and government meltings. They represent the nation's struggles, its ambitions, and its artistic triumphs. When you see a coin sell for millions of dollars, you're not just seeing a transaction. You're seeing the value we place on preserving these incredible stories, on owning a unique and irreplaceable piece of the American experience. They are miniature monuments, each with a story worth a fortune. Ultimately, the world of rare coins is a reminder that history isn't just something you read about in books. It's something you can touch, hold, and own. It reminds us that value isn't just about gold or silver content. It's about rarity, beauty, and the power of a great story. So next time you get some change, take a closer look. You probably won't find an $1804, but you never know. The hunt is part of the fun. Thanks for joining me on this journey. My name is Adil, and I'll see you next time.